I'm not going to be able to get away without talking about England for a minute or two, am I? It's the semi-final of the World Cup, Argentina versus England. I think it's the first time I believe that the two nations have met for 20 years in the World Cup. Our history goes back a long way. There's been more controversy between these two games between these two teams than I can remember. And look, I'm going to be honest with you. If we manage to beat Argentina again tonight, of the two teams that I was watching playing football yesterday, Spain and France, I was kind of saying to myself, of those two teams, I'd rather have Spain in the final. Look, not because Spain are a fantastic team. Let's not be mistaken. But I just felt like perhaps, with the formidable squad and the attacking squad that France have that didn't appear on Tuesday night, I just kept thinking to myself, of the two teams, I think I'd rather be playing Spain. But we've got to beat Argentina first. So the very, very best of luck to England against Argentina tonight. Let's hope we can do it and reach the final of the World Cup. Right. There are a number of rumours that won't go away when it comes to whether some West Ham players will still be at the club once the summer transfer window shuts. Now, the focus has been mainly on Jared Bowen, Crescencio Somerville, and Konstantinos Mavropanos. We've been spared the anguish of wondering whether Matthias Fernandes was going to go, because that deal was done and dusted ages ago. Now, when it comes to Bowen, it seems that we are very close to hearing officially that he will indeed continue to be at the club next season. I've already stuck my neck out and said he's definitely staying. When it comes to Somerville, I questioned only the other day whether this £40 million release clause even existed. Roma has apparently ramped up their interest in the player, and yet their derisory offer of £34 million isn't even being entertained. And it falls well short of what we want, which is 50 million. So 16 million short. It doesn't even, if this 40 million release clause does exist, it doesn't even manage to impact on that. Now, whilst Roma can offer Champions League football that Somerville and every player, I guess, would desire to be in, what they can't seem to offer is a salary package that's going to lure him away from West Ham. And that's even with him having his wages cut by half. Look, it may still happen, but history tells us that Italian football is not necessarily known to have immense amount of money to spend on transfers and on wages. And then we turn to another player where speculation continues to grow. Every few days, another social media outlet claims that Konstantinos Mavropanos is on his way out of West Ham. 1 minute it's to the German league, next minute it's to champions Arsenal, and now apparently Leeds United have thrown their hat into the ring as well. Yet the more I look at the situation with Dinos, the less I think any of the rumours actually make sense. In fact, I think Dinos could become one of the most important players in this entire championship campaign. All right, him and Bowen and Tati, but you get my gist, a key player. Now, not only do I believe he'll stay, I think he has every reason to stay. And let me explain why. But before I do that, if you're new to the channel, first time you're watching the West Ham Voice, there's a QR code that's just appeared in the top corner there. If you enjoy it, why not click on that QR code, become a subscriber? Costs nothing to subscribe. All the content is free of charge. So let's look at why I believe the transfer rumours have kind of got this one a bit wrong. Football fans have incredibly short memories. You've only got to wind back 18 months, and Dinos couldn't do anything right. Every misplaced pass was greeted with a groan. Every time he came on the pitch from the subs bench, there were boos and jeers. Every mistake he made was magnified. There were genuine calls for West Ham to sell him. Some fans simply decided that he just wasn't going to be good enough for West Ham United. You've only got to fast forward one season, and the very same player walks away with a Hammer of the Year trophy. Think about that. How often does a player go from being one of the most criticised to one of the most valued squad members to become the supporters player of the season? Hardly happens at all. Now, I honestly think Nuno deserves enormous credit for this. Under previous managers, Dinos kind of looked like a defender, playing with a lot of uncertainty. That he's got the physical attributes, he's got the pace, he's got the aggression, but mentally he seemed to be one mistake away from another. Under Nuno, he seemed to become calmer, more disciplined. His positioning improved. His recovery and defending became one of West Ham's biggest strengths. Instead of looking nervous, he started to look like a leader. And we have to also acknowledge that the arrival of Axel Disasi certainly helped Dinos to improve all the aspects of his game incredibly well. But this transformation is exactly why Nuno values Dinos very, very highly. Managers don't willingly sell players that they've just helped to rebuild. Let's look at the current squad, especially the defensive part, because I think this is where the rumours really start to kind of fall apart a little bit. I'm not saying that there's no truth in them, but I'm just thinking that the rumours that he's definitely going, I think, are a bit far fetched. Disasi, for now, he's returned back to Chelsea after his loan spell has ended. Now, that's one experienced centre half gone. Jean-Claire Todibo appears completely out of favour, whether that's because of his disagreement with Nuno during the Newcastle game at the end of last season, when he was taken off for a blunder, which I still think was Hermansen's fault, not so much Todibo's, but we forget about that. It's gone, can't do anything about it. Or whether it's his refusal to actually take part in the behind closed doors friendly played the other day, or whether just the relationship has simply broken down. It just doesn't look like Todibo is going to be central to Nuno's plans this coming season. Look, we've heard issues between Todibo and previous managers at the club, so this recent issue isn't anything new. Look, whatever the truth is, Todibo doesn't currently look like he's staying. So that's another senior centre-back gone. Then we've got Max Kilman. Now, nobody quite knows where he really stands. He's slipped down the pecking order, that's for sure. There's no doubt about that. Can he force his way back? That's possible. Dinos did it. I've just mentioned how he was out of favour with everybody, but yet he managed to resurrect his career. It's very possible that Kilman could do it. But is Nuno going to rely on the will it or won't it happen scenario? So suddenly, when you review all the issues facing all the centre-backs that we have or had at the club, who becomes the only experienced player that you can absolutely rely on? Konstantinos Mavropanos. You take him away, and West Ham are going to have to completely rebuild our centre-back setup. You know, we're going to need a minimum of 2 experienced centre-backs to navigate our way through this upcoming championship campaign. That hardly sounds like a club that's preparing to sell him. I don't think, and this is one of the reasons I just can't see it with the problems we had with Kilman, the problems we had with Todibo, the fact that Disasi's gone. Dinos Mavropanos is the only one left standing. Look, relegation will certainly have an impact on the squad. You know, we're expecting it. We know big earners are going to leave. Star names will move on, as happened with Fernandes, as may happen with Somerville. But it's vital that the club don't allow wholesale changes. The dressing room will continue to need leaders, players that can carry standards, players that have got real value, experience that can actually not only help the team, but also help youngsters coming through, just like we have at West Ham. And Mavropanos fits that description perfectly. He's been through difficult periods in his own career, and he's exactly the kind of player that you'd want to build a championship promotion team around. And I have to ask, why would he leave? Everyone talks about clubs wanting him. Sure, every good player will have other clubs looking their way. Nobody actually talks about whether he actually wants to leave himself. Apparently, he's been told he's staying, and apparently he's accepted that status quo. Let's start with Arsenal as an example. You know, we've all seen the rumours, and I kind of struggle with this one. Why would he leave being one of the first names on Nuno's team sheet to become perhaps second, third choice defender at Arsenal? He's lived that life before, hasn't he? And he didn't particularly enjoy it the first time round. He joined, all right. He joined Arsenal as a teenager. Opportunities were limited. You know, a succession of loan spells followed before he actually left for good and rebuilt his reputation with Stuttgart in Germany. Now, he got regular football, finally allowed him to develop into a defender that we knew that we came in for. Now he's already experienced what it's like to be part of a big club without being able to play permanently. So why would he voluntarily return to that situation? Maybe now, I guess, he stands more of a chance of getting regular game time at a club like Arsenal. And Arsenal they'll offer Premier League and Champions League football. But I don't know. I don't think he would want to play second or third fiddle at Arsenal. Leeds United are now apparently interested. And although they did better than us in staying in the Premier League, would Dinos consider moving to Leeds a step up? No disrespect to Leeds United. I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. However, Germany is a slightly different conversation. He knows the Bundesliga. He was successful there. He built a strong reputation there. And if a German club comes in that's got Champions League football on offer as well, then perhaps the discussion changes. Now, I don't think anyone would blame him if he left for something like that. 28 years of age, it's probably one of his last opportunities, maybe, to secure a final move to an elite European football club. But that's the key point. It would need to be an elite opportunity that offers him regular playtime, whilst perhaps things like Champions League football as well. If he leaves West Ham, I'd expect it to be for a club abroad offering Champions League football. It could be a club here in England as well. Aston Villa seem to be interested in everyone that moves, so maybe a club like them would come in for him as well. Now, another argument I've seen is that he'd probably want to leave because of international football. Again, I'm not convinced by that argument either. Greece have regularly selected players from leagues outside Europe's so-called Big Five. So international managers generally care far more whether the player is playing regularly in a domestic division rather than a player that's sitting on the bench half the time. Look, if Dinos plays 40-odd games, 46 games, plus any cup games for West Ham, it helps West Ham's challenge for promotion. And if he performs well, there's every reason why he'll remain a key part of the Greek national team as well, even though playing football in the Championship. Being an undisputed starter is often worth more than sitting on the bench in a stronger league. Then we come to West Ham themselves, and let's be honest, selling Mavropanos wouldn't suddenly solve the club's finances. It certainly will contribute, but it won't transform the transfer budget. What it would do is it would create another huge hole. West Ham would then need to go out and spend money replacing a defender that they could keep for nothing. That's assuming they could even find someone that's on par or better than Dinos. Now, finding experienced centre-backs who understand English football isn't easy. Finding one prepared to play in the Championship and be good enough for the Premier League, should we get promoted in first time of asking, is even harder. Keeping Mavropanos is simply the better option. Sometimes the best signings you make are those players that you've already got. Now, I also think there's a personal side to this. Mavropanos has rebuilt his reputation once already. He's gone from being an Arsenal reject to a Bundesliga success, and then gone from that to becoming West Ham's player of the season, Hammer of the Year. Now he's got another opportunity. Lead West Ham back into the Premier League. Imagine what that would do for his legacy. Instead of being remembered simply as just another decent defender, he'd be remembered as one of the leaders who dragged West Ham straight back up. Supporters won't forget that. They won't forget who delivered promotion. Now look, the behind closed doors friendly against Chesterfield tells us a bit of a story as well. The one thing that caught my attention this week, despite all these transfer rumours, was Mavropanos playing in that behind closed doors match against Colchester. If West Ham genuinely believe that he's about to leave, are they really going to risk him playing pre-season football? Yeah, if he's going, you take him away from playing. You keep your valuable assets unharmed. You know, you make sure that don't pick up a knock or two that might hinder their opportunity to leave. Now, why continue integrating him into Nuno's plans if he's going to go? To me, actions speak louder than the transfer gossip that's going on. Everything the club has done so far points towards Mavropanos remaining an important part of this squad. So, where do I think this is going to end? Well, unless, like I've said, a genuine Champions League club arrives with an offer that completely changes the equation, I think Dinos is staying. I think he starts the season at West Ham. I think he even captains the side on occasions when Bone isn't available. Let's not forget he did that in the cup last season. I think he'll be one of the first names on Nuno's team sheet, undoubtedly, and I think he'll play a huge role if West Ham are going to bounce straight back into the Premier League. Could things change before deadline? Oh yeah, of course they could. Football is always there to surprise us, but based on everything we know, the squad situation, Nuno's trust in him, his status within the dressing room, his international prospects, and the lack of obvious destinations that genuinely improve his career, I don't see a move making sense. And I have a feeling that by the time the transfer window closes, Konstantinos Mavropanos will still be wearing the claret and blue of West Ham. If you've enjoyed this show, please do hit the subscribe, click on the QR code to become a subscriber. Please hit the like button below there somewhere, bell notification to let you know when I'm next on, and also hit the hype button, because hitting the hype button allows this to be elevated for other people to watch on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Tell me what you think about Dinos. Is he staying? Is he going? And what about England? Are we going to get to the final? I think we will.